Hello everyone, this is ponderonweather. In this update, we're going to be talking about our next storm system bringing very heavy rainfall, some severe weather, and the tropics are heating up again, and next week is already looking interesting. So I appreciate all my followers out there and my new followers. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America and the tropics, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's take a look at the overall jet stream this morning on the North American view, and you can actually see this massive dip in the midsection of the country. That actually is dipping all the way down into portions of New Mexico, bringing more snow for the ski resorts out there. But out ahead of it, it's got a lot of lift, and that powerful jet streak will set the stage for more severe weather that's moving to the picture into parts of Texas, and more heavy rainfall as well, portions of Texas and into Oklahoma over the next 2 days. So let's take a look at the tropics out there, because things are actually kind of heating up. The National Hurricane Center has 2 areas of concern where there is convection, where they give it a 40 to 50% of development over the coming days. But we also have this other little feature out here towards the Lesser Antilles that actually has a 50% chance of developing them several days from now, and that will traverse out here into the Western Caribbean, where I do feel this will become our next tropical type system. But we've got some storms this morning into portions of Nebraska, but it's all ahead of this this storm system out here into portions of New Mexico. That's going to create the lift and set the stage for our next chance for storms and some very heavy rainfall. So if we take a look at the overall temperatures this morning, it's hot. It's actually really warm out here in the portions of Maine. Kind of rare to see for late October, checking in at over 60 degrees in portions of Maine this morning. But yeah, you can see the colder pockets of air out west, and that ahead of it, you got some warmer conditions trying to filter back in, and that's where that clash in temperatures are going to be taking place later on this afternoon, getting into the day tomorrow. And it's all complements of this little vorticity, this low pressure center that's diving down from, it originated actually in Alaska, and it traversed, took a beeline north from the northwest to the southeast, and this morning it's over portions of New Mexico and taking a beeline over towards Texas with more beneficial rains for them. But out ahead of it, we do have some of the warm sector, so we are concerned about some severe storms later on tonight. I think this is more likely an overnight event. I don't think this really gets going until late this evening into the overnight, but we do have a slight risk for severe storms in far west Texas, just south of the Texas Panhandle, where things could get a little bit of bumpy into the later into the overnight time frame. And those could be some large hail producers as well, because I did show you those temperatures out west. We've got a colder pocket aloft, and typically whenever you have that, as those storms rise, it'll tap into some of those colder air and transfer some of that into hailstones, and that'll fall to the surface. But we are looking at some damaging winds. This won't be until an overnight type threat, and there's just a very small isolated tornado threat with this particular setup for today. So as we move through time and take a look at right about Friday morning, around 6 o'clock in the morning, like I mentioned, I think a lot of this activity really doesn't get going until very late in the evening into the overnight time frame. So by the time we wake up for your 6 a.m. rush hour, yeah, we got a line of storms in far west Texas bubbling up, with some of those could be severe and packing some higher wind gust. And further to the south, you can actually see it's a little bit more isolated, right? So whenever those are a little bit more isolated and discrete, that's always a concern, where it could be some of those larger hailstones. Areas could be rotating a little bit better, and because it's just that discrete in nature. But as this pushes into North Texas, I do feel this is going to be weakening. So I'm really not expecting severe storms in North Texas. Most of it's going to be out west and further off into the south, and especially into southeast Texas. But that vorticity literally basically takes a bullseye right over Texas, with some very heavy rain, getting more heavy rain into Texas and Oklahoma. That'll actually transfer into portions of Arkansas, Louisiana. You can actually see the rest of the country for tomorrow on Friday. That's pretty nice, right? I mean, the only action is this huge storm system further off into the southern plains that's going to be bringing more heavy rain, and they definitely need it in a big way down here. So here's the snapshot as we go into Friday afternoon. It's just going to be a kind of a chilly rain really all day long. So again, I'm not expecting severe weather in North Texas, but I am expecting some very heavy rainfall. We're probably talking on the 1 to 3 inches of rain, easily not out of the question for a good chunk of North Texas into East Texas, even maybe some higher amounts in just far southeast Texas. But as you swing further south, that's where we have a little bit more instability to work with and more discrete, isolated nature in some of those storms. So that's why we do have that threat for severe storms a little bit further off into the southeast into Texas, where the SPC has highlighted that slight risk for severe storms, essentially right along into south of the Houston Metroplex, more likely Victoria, those type areas down here, down into Corpus Christi, could get a little bit bumpy as far south as the Rio Grande Valley. So, and again, those could be some larger hail producers with that just isolated, discrete type cells that are just a little bit more bubbly and they're not more compact down here. But we are going to have a wind threat, and we do have a fairly elevated tornado threat along the coast. And these could be some like just quick spin up tornadoes down here. Very isolated, but hey, it doesn't take much. It happened in Jarrell the other day, 4 minutes on the ground, but it did a lot of damage just within those 4 minutes. So it doesn't take that much to spin up this activity and cause some damage just in a very short amount of time. So if we kind of zoom in, let's take you about 10 o'clock on Friday. So as you kind of see, you can see on the latest high resolution guidance going through San Antonio, going through Round Rock, Austin, those areas. These areas are a little bit more isolated. You see those little purples and whites. That's always indicative of maybe some supercells popping up, and on that isolated discrete nature down here in Corpus Christi, things start to get their act together. So that's why it's more of a concern further south here for those isolated discrete cells. And as we move through that 2 o'clock time frame, it's just all rain further north. There's no severe weather, but the severe weather is really going to be elongated further south. So places like into Lake Jackson and Angleton down here in far southeast Texas, into Victoria, those areas are my concern to seeing essentially an isolated tornado threat, a stronger wind gust, and some of those larger hailstones that could be falling, doing some damage to some vehicles that are parked outside. So definitely be on high alert as you get into late morning time frame into the early afternoon, as this line of storms will be impacting your area. But well, look at all those colder temperatures, and like I mentioned, it's just going to kind of be a chilly rain into a good chunk of North Texas. Most of these temperatures up further north with above average temperatures. It's really just kind of below average, where all that vorticity with that cold pocket aloft sinks to the surface and brings kind of more of a chillier rain. And it's a little bit higher temperatures further south. That's why we have some of the higher instability, and it's going to be tapping into more of that severe weather threat further south. So, but yeah, the winds are going to be a little bit of a concern over the next 2 days, especially where that vorticity is in New Mexico and a good chunk of Texas, expecting some definitely high winds. There's going to be pockets of higher winds, but I feel like the higher winds are going to be essentially into West Texas, but especially down here into portions of southeast Texas, and that'll swing into for the deep south. But even further north into Oklahoma and Kansas, you're still close enough where you still could be seeing some of those higher wind gusts. So as we move into your Saturday time frame, that storm system will be on the move, still over portions of the deep south. So that heavier rains will shift into Louisiana, that Mississippi area, into Alabama, eventually head into portions of Georgia. The severe threat is in this sector right here as this moves along from west to east. But hey, here's Halloween, right? So what's happening for my trick-or-treaters out there? It's pretty nice, right? We had that storm system kind of clear the runway a little bit, and back behind it, by the time you go into Monday to end October for your Halloween, I know a lot of people got plans out there, right? So if it's going to rain or not, hey, no, about 80% of the country is probably not going to be seeing a drop. So we got nice weather for your trick-or-treaters. The only areas that might have some impacts are portions of the Northwest and portions of far eastern portions of the Northeast as well, seeing some light to moderate shower activity. And the temperatures are going to be feeling really nice. I mean, there's no complaints whatsoever with these temperatures right here. These are high temperatures, folks, to end October. It's going to be feeling really decent out there with widespread 60s and good 70s along the coastline. So that's slightly above average, if not average, down here to what you typically see for your just normal Halloween day. So overall, it's going to be a nice day for Halloween coming up. But what's happening after that? Because things do actually get really interesting. So we highlighted that recurving typhoon that's actually going to happen out there in the West Pacific yesterday in yesterday's video. That is going to set the stage for what happens going forward. So as we get into November here, we actually see the WPO, which is your West Pacific Oscillation, go negative. I know you can't see these dates, it's probably pretty small, but this is around Halloween time frame, right? So this is Halloween, goes all the way through November the 6th, so essentially your first week of November. That's a nosedive, folks. I mean, that plunges all the way to a -4 deviation, basically implying much colder conditions for the western areas of the U.S., while most of the central and eastern 2/3 are, well, a positive, right? So what does that look like in layman's term? Bam, there it is, guys. I mean, that's colder conditions really highlighting over the west with all that trough, the negative WPO, and just completely the opposite on your central and eastern 2/3, especially in the Northeast. Someone commented yesterday, say it was 74 degrees in Vermont. That's warm for this time of year. Yeah, expect those warmer conditions to continue for the next, at least through the next 7 to 10 days. So all the colder air is out west. But here's your drought monitor. So man, with a lot of areas need the rain. All these areas, this is the newest update from this morning, the 27th here. This is the new drought monitor, and a good chunk of about 80% of the country is experiencing some abnormally dry conditions. Obviously, California is desperately needing some rain. The midsection of the country where they are actually getting it. So this is a good sign to see it in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas. Those are actually good signs because these areas desperately need the rain. Areas out here far off to the East Coast is really not experiencing that too much of a drought right now. But there's California. Hey, we got some help on the way next week as we're going to be looking at a powerful trough that's going to be coming in, complements of that negative WPO. Man, that really look how far south that digs, all the way down into California. That typically implies unsettled weather and colder conditions for much of the west, where the ridge is in place, southwest winds kick in, boom, you have all those higher and drier conditions and really warm conditions for a good chunk of the central and eastern 2/3. But underneath that trough, we got a lot of cold air to talk about because that digs all the way down into Southern California, guys. So much colder conditions coming, especially by the middle of next week, and a good chunk out west here. And you can see the temperature gradients. That's usually concern for more possibly severe weather too. But underneath that, we could be looking at rain and even more snow flying in the higher elevations and portions of Idaho and Montana, back into Nevada here. But we got rain. That is rain. That's a good sight to see, not just in the Pacific Northwest where the atmospheric river is alive and well, but we're talking Northern California, we're talking Central California, we're talking Southern California with rain. Yeah, this won't be until the middle of next week, but that trough is really going to mean business, and that's going to bring much colder conditions and some welcome rains in the picture for you guys. But look at the jet stream as we go into next week. This won't be until Thursday, November the 3rd, with that WPO plunging. This goes all the way down to the coast. This is kind of a rare sight to see as it brings all that colder conditions. You got all the warm sector out ahead of it, and you got a powerful jet streak. This typically implies this could be looking at a significant wind threat as we head into mid to late next week. So we'll have to be watching this area of concern as we move deeper into next week. But back behind it, we got plenty of snow with that colder air flying. We got plenty of snow flying too. More snow into Montana, Wyoming, headed into Utah, going back into the Rockies there, and boom, it's like deja vu again, right? Here's next Thursday. We're talking about rain today. We're talking about rain for next Thursday. Same areas, back into Texas, back into Oklahoma with another storm system. And as we move into Friday, boom, same again. Deja vu with another storm system comes through Texas. Oklahoma, this could be our fairly significant wind threat. We'll just have to watch how all this plays out. But it's always a concern with so much ridging out, out east, and you got a massive trough out west. I mean, that temperature gradient is only going to be setting the stage for that clash in the middle for more severe storms, and it could be a significant wind threat with this one. But overall, here's the highlights over the next 7 to 10 days. I don't need to tell you, it's going to be fairly warm out there in good chunk of the central and eastern 2/3, while much of the west is experiencing those below average temperatures, especially as we head into those first 5 days of November. And all of Alaska is going to be below average as well. But we got welcome rains coming back. Again, not just before the Pacific Northwest, where the atmospheric tap river is really turned on now, and that's no letting go now. The gas is on full throttle, and you got heavy rains adding up over time. But beneficial rains sink further south. With that trough sinking south, that's going to bring the unsettled weather further south. So, hey, this is more rains coming back into California. This won't be until by the end of next week, but lighter amounts as you traverse southeast. But with the complements of Thursday and Friday of this week, Thursday and Friday of next week, we've got a good healthy rain setting up over Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and as you shift further east, it's lighter amounts as these storm systems begin to weaken, and even lighter amounts as you head further off into the Ohio Valley and to portions of the Northeast. But there's plenty of snow going to be flying on the backside with those colder conditions, especially in British Columbia. Those higher elevations, the Sierra Nevadas, the ski lovers are going to be really loving it. So yeah, more snow is going to be on the table, and you'll be adding to those totals for the next 7 to 10 days out west. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.